pleased to give a contribution in response to the budget estimates process that we have just gone through. I acknowledge those ministers who provided the bulk, in some cases all of their time, to opposition members. Not all did, but certainly the majority of the sessions that I was in, they didn't, and I thank them for that. I hope they'll do so again next year when there'll be fewer opportunities to say we've only just been elected, we're still working through the details. I'll take that on notice. But certainly I think it added to the value of the process that we've just been through. I acknowledge the chair of the two committees, including yourself, sir, and indeed all of those officers who assisted ministers in the preparation of their remarks. I have spoken in the House previously about the arts portfolio and at length about early childhood during earlier stages of the appropriation in the previous supply bill debate. I propose today, sir, to provide in 20 minutes or perhaps even less a summary of the time that the Minister for Education and I spent together, particularly in school education. And perhaps if our whip is kind enough to give me any grievance slots later in the week, we can talk more about TAFE and the Department of Innovation and Skills. But I had the opportunity to ask questions of 7 ministers during the process. And I thank those shadow ministers who I might have been representing in this House for assistance in preparing some of those questions when I was looking after their area. The first thing I'd like to say about the Minister for Education is to congratulate him on maintaining commitments in the best interests of children, schools, young people and the state of South Australia, in my view, to a number of projects that were instigated under the former Marshall Liberal government. And he confirmed in the process of estimates that the flexible industry pathways, for example, that were introduced under the Marshall Liberal government were a positive reform for our state, and he committed to retaining them, along with the related endeavours under the VET for School Students policy, including the embedding of VET in Years 7 to 10, the World of Work Challenge, the Student Pathways website and e-portfolios, and the career counselling strategy work announced at the beginning of this year. And the Minister identified he hopes it will work well with Labor's new technical colleges, as indeed do we. I think the Minister characterised it that when I became the Education Minister 4 years ago, I didn't take an approach of slashing and burning everything that was good that was done by the previous government, and he indeed also does not propose to slash and burn things just because they were created by the previous government. That is a commendable approach that is in the best interests of South Australian children, young people and the opposition. And as the leader and I have said, we will always call out good behaviour indeed, just as we will identify and hold accountable the bad behaviours when they come too. So I commend the Minister for that, as I commend him for committing to continue the Marshall Liberal government's music education strategy. The funding, of course, that goes well before the Marshall Liberal government, but now is the time to again reiterate that every South Australian government continues to support the Primary Schools Music Festival, as we should. The new government doesn't expect to see any changes to the CONTAF program introduced by the former government, and we hope indeed that it will expand. The Shooting Stars program, starting in Whyalla for younger Aboriginal girls, will also go ahead. The Chief Executive confirmed that support for the International Baccalaureate Diploma at Unley High School, Norwood International High School, Aberfoyle Park High School and Roma Mitchell College, introduced by the former government, will continue, and confirmed also that the Literacy Guarantee Unit and the Year 1 phonics check will stay. These are all good things for children and young people in South Australia, and I commend the government for progressing them still. I will be following up with the Minister in due course over whether he is also going to align that literacy guarantee work with the work announced earlier this year of bringing in DIBELS as the standard measure of how our students are going in their early learning, rather than the Running Records program, which is not based on evidence-based the science of reading, and hopefully the Minister will be able to confirm that in due course as well. So then we get to the Labor election commitments, the things that are new and how they interact with the system. So starting with the technical colleges, we spent some time discussing the technical colleges, $35 million for each of 5 sites, admitting that there might be unders and overs, and the government said that Findon will be built and operational by the beginning of 2024, the other 4 in 2026. The government doesn't yet know what qualifications will be offered or what the model of governance will be, but they don't want Findon or the others to be competing with Catholic education, particularly the new Western Technical College recently built nearby. I was pleased the Minister agreed with the opposition's suggestion that they will consider working with Catholic education for joint marketing and collaboration in identifying pathways for students interested in the offerings at either the Western Technical College, Catholic education Education has just started, or indeed at Findon. Now, there may be different governance models in place for each site, depending on what the local needs are. At Findon, the Chief Executive confirmed that the Technical College will be, and I quote, integrated within the school. Now, noting that Findon will still offer generalist programs for years 7 to 12, with 200 places available in the Technical College, what that exactly will look like is unclear, although it seems to be a subset within the senior secondary school. The Minister wouldn't put a date on when the model will be decided and announced, but we will be interested and will continue to follow that up and ask questions. I note that the Education Department website says that these technical colleges will accept enrolments from public and private schools. I went on to ask how that would work. Would a student stay enrolled at their original school but be able to access a course at the Technical College? Would it be free, or would their parents have to pay? Would they need to transfer their enrolment altogether to Findon? There was no clear answer, sir, as I'm sure you'll remember, other than that obviously there would be an option for the student to move entirely their enrolment to Findon. I'm not sure that's what either you or the other Labor members going to election thought that that would be what the promise would be. I think most people assumed that the technical colleges would provide a new offering available to all students rather than just being an expansion of the existing school, but we shall see. The Minister took some questions on notice. Now, there is $175 million funding for the capital in these projects, and that's been identified as new money to the budget. I congratulate again the Minister for achieving that. It was a clear election promise of something new, and it's appropriate that it be new money, not using up existing resources. However, there's also $33.8 million in operating costs for the operation of the colleges. We don't know exactly what it will be spent on, but it will be roughly even across all sites, we're aware. The Minister said a small amount may potentially be directed towards Head's office, although he hopes not much. But the Chief Executive did confirm that this $33.8 million the government will be spending towards running the technical colleges will be part of what the government identifies when they are accounting for state government's contribution towards what's known as Gonski funding. Funding under the National School Reform Agreement determines how much will be spent on public school funding, and that's been in place since 2018. So, in effect, the money going towards running these new technical colleges will be out of the money that was already in the Education Department's budget and has been there since 2018. It'll be spent on this rather than other things within public education. Now, this is a government election commitment. It is appropriate that the government delivers on its commitments. I'm just clarifying where the funding is coming from. It's coming from within existing resources. It does have a consequence of requiring the government to make decisions about what programs were going to be going ahead that will no longer be going ahead, or will be going ahead with a reduced amount of funding, or will be going ahead later. And indeed, the opposition is very eager to know which programs will not be going ahead, or will have their funding cut, or will be delayed and deferred as a result of the government using existing resources to pay for their election commitments. Now, other than one particular example I'll get to in relation to the delivery of the response to the Graham report, there were very little information provided about what other decisions had been made, what programs might be cut. Indeed, the Minister took on notice my question as to when the Department and the Minister will sign off on any decisions relating to which programs and services will be cut. We'll certainly be following that up and look forward to finding out which programs and services within the Education Department will either be cut or delayed as a result of this decision. It also, because the money for the technical colleges is coming from Gonski funding, it does raise questions about how that money can be applied to support students in non-government schools. Because, of course, our Gonski contribution for public schools, from which this money is coming, is required to support education opportunities for public school students. The election commitments seem to be for all students, as is repeated on the Department's website. So that's going to be a challenge for those in the Department who are working on it. There's some smart people in there, so I'm sure they'll work hard on it, and we wish them well because we want this to work for all students. It was also confirmed during the hearings that the Department of Innovation and Skills certainly hasn't had much input into the design of these technical colleges. When I asked the Minister, are we able to identify over the forward estimates how many extra apprentices or trainees the technical colleges, take Findon for example, are expected to deliver, the awkward silence that followed was well, sir, it was difficult to watch. It was difficult for you. You gainfully endeavoured to assist the minister with drawing me back to the budget, and I was able to, I hope, ensure that the budget was sought and identified in that. But then we had further silence and chat, and eventually an answer for the minister. It wasn't meant to be a difficult question or a trick question. I assumed that there would be a briefing there, but especially because for weeks Labor had been advertising, indeed, how great these technical colleges were going to be because they would produce lots of apprentices. What became clear, though, is that the government at this stage isn't able to and doesn't want to commit to any apprentices or trainees being part of the offering. I quote, "We are certainly talking about, at the very least, pre-apprenticeships." I quote again, "These technical colleges will produce people who can go on and do apprenticeships," end quote. Now, that is a goal for all of our schools, sir. We want all of our schools to be producing people who can go on and do apprenticeships. We want all of our schools to be producing programs that give students apprenticeship-ready and work-ready and uni-ready skills. We want all of our schools to be putting in place opportunities for kids to try a trade, to try a doorway to construction program, to get involved in local business and industry. We assumed that when the government were promising $200 million into a new program and then advertising the amount of extra apprentices that it would make available to serve in plumbing businesses like that of Ryan, who's on our televisions, that there might be at least 1 or 2 or 3 apprenticeships guaranteed out of these programs. But at this stage, no guarantee of new apprentices. In relation to the ads, the minister said, from memory, "I do not think anyone spoke to me about the content of the ad. It's not something I've been involved in." I want to be really clear. The opposition is enthusiastic for this government program to work. We want the skill shortages that are in evidence across our state and which are facing many businesses to be assisted. And the government's put $200 million on the table. We want that to work. And it may well be that the model the government is producing is going to assist. I hope that we won't be taking students out of the workplace to keep them just in the technical colleges, but it could well be that it can work well so long as the business and industry partners are engaged. And the department will help the government, I think, retrofit this policy into something very good, and I hope they do. But I make the point, the government spent, it seems, $1 million or more on TV ads, saying that they'll do something that they're actually not doing. There's a lot of nuance in the answers we got from the government about what their policy is designed to achieve and how they're going to deliver it. There's no nuance in the TV ads, sir, where the government has chosen to spend what I assume is at least $1 million of taxpayers' money on TV ads, some in health and some about the technical colleges, and they say that there'll be apprentices, indeed for plumbing businesses like Ryan. I assume that the government has told Ryan that he's going to get apprentices out of this technical college. I'm sad to say that they're not, according to what the government has told us. In 2024, one of them is going to open, and then students in year 10 and 11 and 12 aren't going to be doing apprenticeships, or it's certainly no guarantee that they will. And that's a shame. It's a real shame the government is wasting taxpayers' money on these self-congratulatory ads. Sir, there was also... I'll seek leave in a moment, but I just want to identify prior to the break that there was also $24 million committed to the delivery of rebates for school students, and that's also confirmed to come out of the Gonski allocation, which again is a prioritisation the government's chosen to make. We look forward to learning what they're going to be spending less on as a result. I seek leave to continue my remarks after the break.
Leave is sought, leave granted. Leave is granted.